More on this, let's bring in James Freeman, editorial page assistant editor of the Wall Street Journal and a Fox News contributor.
Morning.
What do you think we learned yesterday?
Well, we didn't learn as much as we wanted to. The House Republicans are searching for the truth, but I think we learned that we got a lot of not very credible answers from the witnesses. A lot of difficulty recollecting things. Now, I understand it's a few years ago. On the other hand, this was the biggest story of the year. Otherwise, they wouldn't have tried so hard to suppress it. The idea that this potential corruption case involving the family of a major candidate for president would not have been top of mind. I think those are conversations with the FBI, if they happened, that you would remember. You also see this really bizarre implicit claim that Twitter is the problem here. Mr. Baker claiming attorney-client privilege. Another witness saying, well, I couldn't get my notes from Twitter, as if Elon Musk is the one who's preventing disclosure.
Because he waived that. Elon Musk waived that attorney-client privilege for him. But the one thing I think is interesting is, where in the world is Jack Dorsey? He was a CEO. Yeah, and well, there's no leader. Why does he get off scot-free?
Yeah, and I think you also saw, I guess, another interesting takeaway, I think, from the hearing was this phenomenon where sometimes people in the media are willing to or eager to make arguments for the Bidens that the Bidens won't make themselves. Their witness saying that Hunter never said it was hacked material. Hunter never told us this is a lie, you got to take it down. They took it upon themselves, and we want to know how. That's a great point. How active was the FBI? You see it with the document stuff too, like media folk making arguments that some Obama-era executive order gave Vice President Biden some sort of superpowers over classified documents. No, he has laws apply to him, and the same thing with Hunter. But I hope that one result of this is some people in our industry think about if you're making a case that the person you're making it on behalf of isn't willing to make, you might want to check yourself.
Good point. Topic 2.
Yes.
Judy Woodruff sat down with Joe Biden yesterday, and but a lot of things came up that really have not been answered before. Do we have it? Okay. So she was talking about the classified documents. He apparently said it was from 1974. We had not heard that before. Just play this sample right now for how he answered that.
The best of my knowledge, the kinds of things they picked up are things that from 1974, and stray papers. There may be something else I don't know. But one of the things that happened is that what was not done well is as they packed up my offices to move them, they didn't do the kind of job that should have been done to go thoroughly through every single piece of literature that's there.
That's the point, and that's the story. They didn't, talking about his staffers, who cleaned out his offices. While he was in Ukraine, FYI, at the end of his vice presidency. They didn't do the kind of job they should have done.
Yeah, there are no staff exemptions in the laws that govern classified material. There's not a staff exemption in the Presidential Records Act. He is accountable. Obviously, he is not someone who wants to be accountable. He also, for someone who's told us how seriously he takes this, he doesn't seem to have bothered to learn too much about it. I don't know, 1970s straight paper. Well, what was it? Really? Every single document is from 1974. Is that what he's saying? I don't think that's credible. You're talking about a long history, Senate career, vice presidential career, different documents, different locations. So I don't think that's going to cut it.
But the other thing he said, James, in this tail end of this answer was, there may be other things there. To paraphrase what he said yesterday.
Yeah, and I think from everything we've seen, that's the reasonable assumption. But just to remind people, when you work in the Senate, these are not files that you might casually throw in your briefcase and go home on Amtrak with. There is a process. You guys have covered the whole, and you know, the whole SCIF system, whether it's senators or staff. These documents are very tightly controlled, and you have to work on it to evade those controls. Also,
I don't like if staff's packing things up, they don't necessarily leave it next to the Corvette. Right, that doesn't make any sense to me. And also, I don't like it when people throw their staff under the bus for things that you should take responsibility for.
Well, but I agree 100%. And I also think if it really is a staff issue, where is that person? Who is that person? Have they been fired from the Biden administration? Because we know a lot of
They've already
the people...
trashed one of them on background. They said that she was very disorganized.
Right.
And then she doesn't have a chance to defend herself.
Right.
But the quote was,
what about the senior officials who were at the Penn Biden Center, who are now
there
in
may be
Biden
something.
administration?
There may be something else I don't know.
Yeah.
That give you some assurance?
Again, it's not about him claiming I didn't know. He has responsibilities under the law. He clearly does not seem to have followed them.
Right.
It's not enough to blame staff or to say I don't recall.
Yeah. Thank you, James.
Great
nice
to see you.
you.
Okay,
James
thanks.
Freeman is
Great
all
to see you.
fired up, huh?
I am. Yeah.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.